if that undersea cable event is somehow attached right around that time of October, saying, "Oh, those damn Russians here, they released their, their 40% BRICS unit, and then they blew up the freaking undersea cable here." Yeah, I'm telling you, it's going to be the Wild West here, Mario, and it's going to be something. It's going to be something here. So a lot of research on this and a lot of good contacts, a lot of networking on this. I've been preparing for this for a while. Super excited, though. Super excited.
Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So this interview has been conducted on Thursday, the 24th of September. And I have the pleasure of speaking with John Perez of @SilverMoneyNews on Telegram. And I got a message from John a few days ago saying that he felt the miners were going to explode. That is the silver and gold miners. And I mean, here we are today, a few days later, and we're actually seeing silver trade up above 32 and gold above 26.50. So, John, welcome to the channel again.
Yeah, good to be back. Good to see you again, Mario. You look great. And I want to compliment you on the last couple shows you've had here with David Jansen and the gentleman you had this morning on geopolitics. I mean, these are key things right now. And Jensen talking about the Comex, and I really am sensitive to that because I believe that we're going to be in a Rule 589 situation here pretty soon. But nice to be back. And yeah, here we are, we're back. And what gold's at $2,655 on the Kitco spot price high, and silver's at $32.26. I mean, this is a nice day to be out here on the camera and see our metals here running, doing what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right. And silver can be frustrating, but a couple of hours ago, I was speaking to a friend, and silver is just trying to break 31, and here we are, a dollar higher. So we could even be above 32.50 before the end of the day. But you were you were telling me some interesting theories, or about cable, the undersea cables between London and New York. And I had never thought about that, even though the nickname of the British pound US dollar exchange rate is cable, because the bankers in New York and London started exchanging information on the rate back in the mid 19th century, and they had copper underground copper cables that they use. Those have been transformed into fiber optic cables, but these cables are really important for the communication between the bankers, and especially the LBMA crowd and the Comex crowd. So I'll let you talk a little bit about what you think.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the first thing to do to get on this topic, and you can see the search engines. If you go on any search engine and type in Russian or Russia submarine and undersea cables in the UK, you'll see this has been ongoing conversation in the intelligence community. Oh, if you have a live feed there, it'd be great. If in the intelligence community, in NATO, that one of their biggest fears is that Russia blows up their undersea cables and cuts off their communications. So that's step number one. But now it's important to note that the LBMA actually transmits some of their reports, if not all of them, via these cables to the Comex on their weekly report. It's a weekly or biweekly report. There's a very good chance, and I did an interview with David Morgan. I went into this, I think, February of 2023, covered that, and I talked about this, and it sounded like a crazy, conspiracy. But ever since we did that interview, the search engines and the articles coming out of The Guardian, BBC, and all the major publications out there, they're all now talking about a potential event with undersea cables and the Russians. Now, it's kind of like Nord Stream 2. Who did it? Nobody wants to admit it. Are they going to blame the Russians? Because, if a cat eats your, there it is. Oh, perfect. Concerns grow over possible Russian sabotage. There you go. That's the Atlantic Council. My goodness. I mean, what more do you want here? Now, whether this happens or not, it's hard to say if it happens here. I believe that this is going to be I believe that, in fact, I'm going to go even more specific here. I believe that this will be the Rule 589 trigger. And then we're going to see the 3, 7, 5, and maybe up to $12 moves per day in the silver area here, because my current silver targets are $50 silver before the end of October, possibly going past 50. And if we get the Rule 589, it's kind of a two-stage piece. If we get the Rule 589 trigger from the undersea cables here, then we're looking at $100 to $125 silver on the high side before Christmas here. And there's only been, it's a big deal here.
Sorry, John, can you explain to us what Rule 589 is?
Rule 589, I'll give you the summarized version here. Rule 589 is basically, it's a circuit breaker in the Comex that doesn't allow it to go past $12 an ounce per day. So technically, we could go up $12, $12 on the high side, or it could be $3, $5, $7. If there's some sort of a situation where if the silver reports don't come in because of the undersea cables, that could present a situation where there becomes a run on silver there. So on Rule 589 is literally, it's a circuit breaker that only allows it to go up $12 a day. So the potential is there. We know if you look at the paper to silver transactions, what do we have? 500 contracts of silver, 450, 500 per 1 ounce of silver. So technically on paper, we can see the move of silver. Now, what would trigger that? And that would be, in my opinion, the undersea cable movement here, blocking off the LBMA reports going to the Comex. And we already know at the Comex that the paper to silver ratio there is 450 to 500 contracts per 1 ounce of silver, physical silver. So they don't have it. So you've got this derivative leveraged time bomb at the Comex. What are they going to do? They will not be able to deliver the silver. So what are we going to have? A rule 589 and force majeure? That would be one of the only situations I see of a couple scenarios here. But this is the scenario that I'm expecting. And watching silver right now, the action in silver, we're up $1. We're up $1.54 for the day, and I think this may have been the second largest day I've seen move in silver here in the last 2 years. It's a solid day. We're over all the numbers we need here. $2,700 by Friday or Monday looks very realistic here. 32.50 was a key number to break before we moved to 34, then to the 35 range. But back to Rule 589. If there's a situation where there's a call on these silver reports, the leverage that's built into these derivatives, they just simply don't have the silver there. And that's where silver can run on a technicality here without anyone taking the blame. It's not an economic piece. It really, what better way to blame another country here? Because if you look at the paper you just brought up, they're already talking about blaming the Russians for something like this. And it would make sense. It would make sense to say, well, looks like the Russians have done it again here. Of course, if silver takes off like that, we're going to be having big problems in the S&P, the Dow, and NASDAQ. They need a scapegoat. So in my opinion here, I've been watching this. The fact that this is the Atlantic Council, this is all over the internet, and it's been consistent, but it really hasn't reached any pages here. I've been following this since December 2022, and it was David Morgan who interviewed me in February of 2023, going over the details of this. And the amount of data that has come out on this has only accelerated. It is only accelerated in terms of, having this happen here. And for me personally, I believe this is going to be the Rule 589 trigger here, because I don't see the U.S. government or the U.S. Financial community, precious metals community, having a mistake saying, oops, we screwed up here, especially when they're leveraged, 450 to 1. It'd be much easier to roll this thing over on some sort of an event and then blame the Russians for it, because the last thing the Americans are going to do is take responsibility for that kind of destructive derivative placements that they have at the Comex there. It would release silver. We would see something we haven't seen before here. But now that you have this, you see the data on this. It's all over. Nobody's reading this stuff here, and there was only one commentator who talked about the LBMA reports going to the Comex here. And that was the only person I saw talking about this here. It's about the only way to do something like this and let silver go and have plausible deniability is to have an event like this happen. Now that sounds completely outlandish and conspiratorial, but if you did research on the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, it's pretty obvious that this is not outlandish. That's a much bigger situation as opposed to a cable here. So that's that. I think we're very, very close to this.
Yeah.
They're going to need a scapegoat. They're going to need a scapegoat here. And there's no better scapegoat these days than Russia.
Yeah, and John, as you can read here, it says undersea cables play a key role in many aspects of modern society, according to accounting for the vast majority of digital communications, including internet traffic, and more than $10 trillion in daily worldwide financial transactions. Hundreds
There it is.
undersea cables run across the world's seas and oceans, with cables in the Atlantic Ocean, the North Sea, seen as being particularly at risk from potential Russian sabotage. And apart from silver, though, I think it would hit the whole derivatives market between London and New York. And it's weird because you think the internet, everything's done via satellite, but it's all by cable. It would be really disruptive. I guess it would also be an excuse for Comex and the banks and the regulator to implement force majeure and cancel all the Comex and LBMA contracts, and that's the reason why you need to have physical, because you have futures and allocated LBMA positions. They're worthless if this were to happen.
That's right. Oh, you hit the nail on the head, Mario. And you look at this article, they're almost giving you the script. It's Russia, Russia, Russia. That's probably the best article I've seen yet here. They've got the CIA and MI6, already accusing them.
Yeah. CIA, MI6. Well, did you see that? I think the CIA and MI6 heads, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they were here in the UK at a FT festival. So I'm sure they were probably talking about this.
It's like, how about that undersea cable situation? I don't see American leadership as saying, "Oops, silver got out of control. We over derivative it." This is the way it works here. It's like right now you look at, NATO and America are just trying to get Russia to launch an attack. The USS Truman is on its way to the Middle East right now. And by the way, this morning, 4 C-17s, a U.S. 101st Airborne landed in Cyprus early this morning. They flew overnight. We got the USS Truman coming in. We've got the 101st Airborne landing in Cyprus here. We've got Israel just blasting away in Lebanon here. We have big problems, and simultaneously, I call it the magical coincidence, simultaneously gold and silver are on fire. Record day for gold every single day. And have you noticed that they don't even publish this on CNBC? None of the news services are publishing record gold every day. I'm blasting it out. My people are awake. We have a lot of people we've been accumulating stocks for almost 2 years now. We've been preparing, and today we're seeing our biggest day ever of capital inflows into our positions like we've never seen before here. So we are absolutely excited about this, to see metals taking off like this. I did a video last night on the GDX and an article. Yeah, there you go again.
Well, there's Richard Moore. He's the head of MI6, and William Burns, head of CIA. They said at an FT event on Saturday. That was, a couple of weeks ago, September 4th. And it says international world order is under threat in a way we haven't seen since the Cold War. So there you go. I think these people are meeting for a reason. Uh,
they're signaling, they're broadcasting.
can you
You know,
explain to the viewers what you think could happen that and explain what a false flag entails? Because I think a lot of people don't know that what it means.
a false flag would be, well, you can kind of, from a conspiracy standpoint, you could look at the 9/11 towers and say, well, the towers here, somehow magically came down, and then we ended up in a war with Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, I don't remember. The news came out, they said it was 19 Saudis, but we ended up attacking Iraq. So in a false flag operation, it's kind of like the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up. Nobody's claiming, in fact, the Americans are blaming the Russians. I thought, well, why would they blow up their own pipeline when this is their source, one of their major sources of income is selling energy to Europe. So in this case here, let's say, for instance, breaking news, a cable has been busted. $10 trillion in economic warfare has been unleashed on the West here. And reports are coming in that a Russian submarine did it when it could have, if you were underwater, trillions in debt, there's one country has more debt than the other. If you look at the American system, you look at the West, we're buried. We're buried in debt here. They've got to find a scapegoat here. So in a false flag, it could be a situation where that cable is blown up. We don't know who did it. And all of a sudden the news comes out. Who owns the news media? The Russians did it. Because that's the way it's always been. The Russia. And they'll say, oh, they're trying to manipulate the election. And then, of course, the news will take over. And then everyone will believe what it was, the mainstream narrative is. And as you dig into it, you start to find out that these things didn't happen. Kind of like the Gulf of Tonkin in Vietnam, where they said there was an attack. Turned out it wasn't the Vietnamese. It was a false flag operation here. I personally believe that we're probably going to see you're going to want to put false flag as an asterisk on the side and research it, because I've been watching the communications and the patterns coming out on this particular story here. And it's pretty clear that they've broadcast it. But the one you just brought out, the BBC, we're all sitting together here having tea and discussing this underwater cable here as if they know it's coming. Well, they've always known it's coming. And we'll find out when someone takes a big delivery of silver and gold, which we may be seeing right now. We're going to see some sort of economic activity happen right before that happens, which might, just like the shorting of the airliners before 9/11, they shorted the airlines. Someone made a lot of money. And that, by the way, that story has never been investigated. They've never disclosed that.
Do you know I've looked into that story quite a bit, and the brokerage house that put the trades on was Alex Brown. Deutsche Bank was part of Deutsche Bank, or is it? I think it at the time was Alex Brown. Sorry, Bankers Trust. Yeah, and the head of the former head of Alex Brown had been a guy called Buzzy Krongard, who's admitted that he's been like the CIA's been like a mistress for him, because he worked in investment banking from the 60s to the late 90s. And that was the firm that put on the big positions in the puts on the airlines. Jim Rickards he's spoken about that in his book, but he never mentions the fact that it was Alex Brown, the investment bank, that put the trades on. And you can go back in terms of false flag to the Lusitania, World War I.
That's right.
You go back to the Maine for the Spanish Havana Harbor.
It's almost a national sport now. False flags have become a national sport.
You could argue that they might not even blow the cable up, but they might put something as CGI and say that they turn it off, and they don't have to really blow it up, or they could. I think they probably would, but maybe. Do you want to switch over to, because you're talking about the GDX? Do you want to have a look?
Yes. Okay. So the undersea cable one, that story's out there. Let's switch the page here. I haven't
even looked at that, John. And
it's amazing. It's amazing how much.
I look at gold and silver. That's what we follow a lot in the channel. But I think I remember you and John You came on my channel a year and a half or two ago, and you were speaking about that, but I haven't really followed up. But that Atlantic Council, that's really interesting because it's a think tank for the Anglo-American Empire, isn't it? If I'm not.
Oh, yeah, the Atlantic Council. I mean, they're pretty much the mouthpiece. I mean, for NATO, and all NATO operations and what they do is usually broadcast by the Atlantic Council first. I mean, they've got their own reporters. They're really not. They're really the expansion of NATO and Eastern Europe against Russia is always broadcast on the Atlantic Council there. So you really found a good piece of data there that really underpins the entire story. I've been following it now for a good 2.5 years and just pretty much looking at the consistency of communications. And the pattern was there that there was this consistent broadcast of the undersea cables going down. So, and the truth is, I've planned, I have a stock club. We have about 500 paying members in it. And we've got over 500 people that have been accumulating in our stock positions here. And we're seeing it. Everyone's like, what is going on? All this money's coming in. I said, get ready, you guys. I'm telling you, something here is going to happen and it's going to make a big change. But regarding the GDX, I did a video on this last night.
John, just to, I mean, you told me to Google.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is.
And it came up, and also you got Reuters, which is like from last year,
Yeah.
foreign policy. I think is this the arm, the foreign policy is the part of the CFR, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't
Look at that.
Yeah.
See, this has been going on here. So you found it. So you start looking at these broadcasts when they're so consistent. What's happened is that they've seeded the internet with a narrative.
Yeah.
And the narrative is there. I'm looking for this article here. That narrative is now been out there so much that people can now see when it finally blows out, when they finally blow this thing out and the story gets out there, the people are going to search the internet and say, oh, you see, they've been looking out for this Russian thing here for a long time. And now here the cables get blown up and say, well, we warned about this. There was going to be Russia, Russia, Russia. And that's what I see happening right now is that people are going to go to the internet to search and say, well, they warned about the Russians doing this. And they can go as far as saying that the Russians are going to try to affect American politics by something like this. Because what are we? We are 6 weeks from the election. I mean, this is 6 weeks from election. Having a story like this come out where you've got if the cable is busted, everything's going to go to hell. Everything is going to fall off the cliff here. And, we're going to be in a position where, we're going to be seeing silver and gold take off. I think we could see a blackout, and I think we could see a blackout in the stock market, which would be, that would be very, very disturbing, but it can happen here. And a lot of people don't understand that the connection here between the LBMA and the Comex here, this is the weak link. This is the only link. This is the only plausible story that already has a narrative built into the internet. You can see it, and you're pulling it up here right now. I mean, you're doing a great job. I'm impressed. Here I am talking about it, and you're pulling it up in real time here. It's fabulous. And I encourage your listeners to do a search and read about this, and then do a little search on Rule 589 Comex and take a look at the undersea cables and realize that the LBMA does use these cables to communicate financial transactions to the Comex here. I think I'm going to be right on this one here. I really do. I've been on this for a long time.
Do you think it could? I mean, this was probably the best time for it to happen, just before the election. They can wipe out a lot of these derivatives, not just precious metals, but all because as this article here says, it's 10 trillion of daily worldwide financial transactions, and that is mostly going through New York and the city of London because of all the derivatives. It's huge. It's not just gold and silver, but it's interest rate derivatives, commodity derivatives, bonds. I mean, it would, but
It's everything.
the downside for the miners is that they might have to close the markets for a week or two. But I think when the markets come back, the GDX will probably be at 150 or something. I don't know. Maybe you can talk.
I did a video last night, and it was a great article on Kitco. I forgot the gentleman's name. I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. They had a sudden flood of new articles that pushed it off the feed here. But anyhow, to summarize it, it was, here are the couple numbers that I memorized. Since the high of gold in 2011, have you write this down? You got to write this down. Since the high of gold in 2011, gold has increased by probably 32 to 35% since gold's high in 2011. Okay. So in that time, you've got gold up 30%. But in that same time, the GDX high from 2011, the GDX has dropped 50%, while gold has gone up 30%. We have an 80% spread between spot gold and the GDX, which has dropped 15%. This divergence here, it's going to close. The gap's going to close, and there's multiple reasons it's going to happen. Number one, if we have a derivative issue with Comex, that's going to be number one. It'll be realized that all the physical is gone. The price has been low because of these derivatives. We're going to see physical just vaporize on the surface. Where do you go once the physical is gone? You've got to go to the miners. And that's why we're going to see a big move here. I believe I'm all in on this. I am all in on this here. Again, since 2011, spot gold has increased 32%, while the GDX from its high in 2011 has dropped 50%. We have an 80% spread there. I believe that the spot's going to go up. The GDX is going to play catch up to the spot price. And we're already seeing it today. This is the most money I've ever seen coming into all our stock positions in 2.5 years. So I think we're seeing the early starts of it. I'm so glad we're on the camera here doing this, because everyone notices it. Everyone's jumping. I was like, what is going on? Where's all this money coming from here?
John, it's even worse on the GDXJ.
Yeah, look at that.
It was, I mean, it's a different animal, of course, the junior miners, but
excellent chart. You're brilliant, Mario. You're brilliant. Look at that chart there. That's beautiful there. Yeah, you can pull these things up here, and you can take a look from 2011 here. Yeah, there it is, the GDX, and then the GDXJ. I mean, look at them. They're on the ground. Man, if you were to, I think you might be able to put spot gold in that chart to show a comparison. If you take a 15-year chart from 2011 to today and compare gold with the spot gold with the GDX, GDXJ, put them both on, you'll see clearly there's a divergence here, and that spread is real. And I believe that once people realize that the derivatives don't control the price, that there's force majeure in paper. Here's another rocket booster to this. BIS, gold is a tier 1 asset. If all the gold vaporizes, which it will, where are they going to go when they run out of gold? They're going to have to go into the miners here. So I believe there's going to be tier 1 mining stocks that are going to be picked up by many banks. And that's going to be in contrast to the mortgage industry, which is going to be wiped out here very, very soon. And we're going to see mortgage paper take a back seat to what I believe is going to be a tier 1 gold assets in tier 1 gold stocks here. They'll become tier 1 because the rapid increase of the GDXJ. Well, look at that chart you got there.
Oh, that's the GDX to gold ratio. So it's like the Dow gold ratio, but on the GDX. So yeah, and I mean,
look at that.
Lower compared to 2008. Look at that. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of room for the miners versus the metal. And like you said, you know, if there is some kind of event, geopolitical, with these undersea cables, and the paper market collapses, it would be very almost impossible to get physical gold and silver. And the next best thing, like you said, is to get the miners.
Yes, that's what I see coming. That's this is our trade. We're all in specifically on these are two major factors here. The undersea cables, which I believe is going to happen, and the GDXJ to spot gold. And here we got gold. I mean, you see all the analysts. I like the guys on Twitter. I read a lot of guys on Twitter, and everyone's commenting, spot gold is going up. Yeah, but my stocks are not going anywhere. That's, my people say the same thing. John, what's happening? Our stocks aren't going up. I said, just relax. It's not time. They're going to let it go here. It's obvious. There's no fundamental reason for these stocks to be sitting down here. We know about massive shorting in the silver, gold stock and junior world. It's a big topic there in Canada. There's guys working on that here. There's also shorting amongst all the mining stocks. And I know this because my members send me letters where the trading firms are asking them, would you like to loan us your stock to short in exchange for 12% a year for shorting it? Well, they're specifically asking. I have dozens of these letters where they're asking my people here, will you lend us your stock to short? And it's all mining stocks. It's all my stock picks. It's like, we're talking TD Ameritrade, Schwab, all the big brokers, they're shorting the mining stocks. That is going to go away. That is going to go away at probably about the same time as gold and silver letting go here. And we're going to see a big move in all the stocks. And then there's another conspiracy I have for you. And I don't have the video with me. Very hard to difficult. I call it the RDS short. There's a short video out there by a former CIA agent. His name is Robert David Steele. And he did a little video talking about how Wall Street has illegally shorted, and the claim is that they've illegally shorted up to $100 billion in assets from illegal shorting on the stock market. And it was a very short clip. And this guy, Robert David Steele, some people know who he is. He's gone now. I wonder why. But anyhow, in this video, he claimed that all this data that was shorted on Wall Street was being kept at the NSA to be released later. And in that, he said that it was an illegal, I think it was $100 billion in illegal shorting. And there was no details on who was being shorted here. But in my opinion, based on me studying all the companies I've been working with, who's being shorted at one time here, I believe that issue is going to come to light later. And it's going to come with a term called RICO laws. And it's going to be attached to DJT Trump stock, which they're now running a lawsuit right now. They're trying to get a lawsuit where they implement RICO laws against organized shorting in the markets here. So this whole silver squeeze bit, there's more to this. You won't see this in the news. This is all my stuff I have on Silver's Money News on Telegram. And I'll tell you, we've got the RDS short. We've got the GDX to spot price here. We've got false flag operations here. We've got the tier 1 gold assets in the BIS, where you will no longer be able to assess derivative gold on your books. You have to come up with physical gold. So now the requirement to claim gold on the banks by the BIS, let's say you were holding a derivative that was represented, one share equaled 1 ounce of gold. But then when you look at the prospectus, that one share represents only 1/10 of an ounce. You can no longer claim that 1 ounce unless you get full physical recovery here. That's another rocket booster here. Not to mention a great chart put out by Tavi put out a great chart about showing 1% of the monies put into the silver gold stock sector. It's only 1% is in, but yet at the end of the bull market in 1980, it was 28% of the investment market was in silver and gold mining stocks. We are only at 1%. And now we have social media, so much more money printed out there. I think we're going to see a 28x tsunami of money coming into the stock sector. Physical is going to be gone. The GDX has got to catch up to the spot price. Silver is going to break out here. We have all these different variables, and these are all, I call them rocket boosters here. Yeah, this is Grotti's chart. Yeah, this just chart here, commodities outperform stock market. This is, to me, this is, he's saying it. This is going to be. I think it's going to be right on the money here. I think all this that's coming together here right now, the tier one, the RDS short, and then I think there's a website out there called Save BC Mining. It's about shorting the mining stocks in Canada getting whacked by the shorting crowd. I believe that's going to all go away. And here in the States, it's going to be DJT stock versus guys like Ken Griffin. And I believe they're going to bring it. It's already been listed. They've already filed it. They're attempting to get RICO laws applied to the illegal shorters. Well, this is racketeering corruption. This is a very, very serious issue here. I've studied all this here, and I based all our strategic and tactical investment strategies on all our stocks based on all these events, and it's already paying off. I mean, in the last week here, I'm just noticing money is just pouring in. And that's why I was so glad to get together with you at this time here. And here I get on with you, and look, what we bring in the record gold prices today. I love it.
And John, I remember a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, maybe a little more. I saw a clip of an investment banker or brokerage house executive, basically admitting that they naked short all the time. They don't even borrow it anymore. So it's like I don't know if you've read about Jesse Livermore. He started out in the bucket shops, which were run by gangsters in the 1920s and 1910s. And basically, a bucket shop is where you bet on the price of the stock that's trading on the stock exchange, but you're not really buying or selling the stock. So I think that's what we have right now. And Jesse,
you're right. That's a good description.
Yeah, he was really clever, and he got in trouble with these bucket shops because he had a direct phone line to the stock exchange, and he knew what the prices were doing before the bucket shops. And there's a gangster guy who he was the guy who bribed the Chicago White Sox. Do you remember him? He was one of the biggest. He had a lot of the bucket shops. I forgot now.
Chicago, huh?
Yeah. It was Shoeless Joe Jackson. I mean, these are so. What you're saying is that the whole financial
this is rigged. It's so rigged. Listen, I'm ready to capitalize on it. If I took I've been researching this for many years and preparing. I've been very quiet about it, and now we have a big stock group. We're 98% all mining assets, juniors, exploration, intermediate, and some majors here. And we had a strategy. I wrote this plan back in 2007. I wrote this business plan for a hedge fund. What would you do if we gave you, $400 million? What would you do with that money in the markets here? And I wrote it, and the market went up and it pulled back down. I thought, let's just go ahead and shelve this for now. And about 3 years ago, I decided, let's go ahead and execute this here. And it is really coming together here. But all these little side stories that we're talking about, we don't see in the news here. I'm playing off these, basically these wild stories here. But that's the mining sector. If you know it's rigged, then you can expect that when these guys pull the rug when they rug pull everyone, they're going to benefit. I mean, look at the central banks. They've been accumulating now for 10 years. Is it the central banks ready for $3,000 gold? You bet they are. They're ready for $3,000 gold. They've been accumulating for 10 years. How about the Russians? We have the 40% BRICS unit coming out in October. And the chairman of the second largest gold mining firm in Russia came out this morning, and he said gold should be trading right now at $3,500 an ounce. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, this is what he said. And that's the price that the BRICS unit should be at this morning, $3,500. So the BRICS, in my opinion, the Russians they're going to roll out their unit in the last 2 weeks of October, and this is going to send the market into a tailspin on top of all the other things. I would not be surprised.
Sorry, I was trying to let me
Oh,
see.
that's okay.
Find the name of the guy who was in. Oh yeah, it's Arnold Rothstein. So I'll bring it up. He was the guy who was behind the White Sox scandal. Here you go. Arnold Rothstein, nicknamed the Brain, was an American racketeer, crime boss, businessman, and gambler who became a kingpin of the Jewish mob in New York City. And so this guy owned a lot of the bucket shops. And as you can see here, he was also involved in the 1919 World Series scandal. Uh, uh, so
Well, it's
very
all the you know, commodities and stocks, and I think that I think what we're going to see in October when the BRICS roll out their unit here. I think it's gonna have, this is going to be a worldwide event, and with all the look what's happening in the Middle East here. You've got aircraft carriers rolling back and forth. You've got the Russians said if you send a long distance missile, Storm Shadow, to hit Moscow, you're opening up the door for a nuclear attack or a nuclear response. So technically, the West already has, hey, let's go. They already said they're going to attack us with a nuke. Why don't we just go ahead and send a nuke over there? And I mean, really, it's like we're on such thin ice right now that you could speculate in so many different areas here. And the idea of something going very, very wrong, it's there's multiple events that can happen here. And we're not even talking about the sanctions that are about to go on with China here. It's really, really, it's a great time to own gold and silver. That's why, couldn't be happier. Couldn't be happier.
So if this false flag or this undersea cable event happens, I mean, it would also disrupt the real economy, because if the markets are shut, the banks could be shut, and you might have trouble getting stuff in the shops as well. Is that something
Yeah,
that,
I think we're going to see a total freeze up, blackouts. I mean, you name it. It's going to be total chaos. We're going to see, ships shipping disrupted, airliners disrupted here. Probably, interstate or international commerce between stocks. Imagine being an American listed company that's trading on the London Stock Exchange, or vice versa. I think we're going to see all of this come through, and that's when your physical count, your what I call your Armageddon plan, where everything goes blank. Everyone in my group, we all have a plan. Everyone has a basically grid down plan. You have your physical, you have your cash, you have your food, you have everything prepared for this. I think we're going to see that. And it could very well happen right around the time that the BRICS announced their unit, which is supposed to be 40% based on gold. I think that will adjust back and forth. But referring to the chairman of, I think Saligdar was the name of the company, claiming that gold should be at $3,516 right now. And he felt as if the BRICS unit has to trade at that number. It has to pop up in order to get liquidity in the company, which into the system. And the assumption is there's no liquidity because nobody wants to sell until we get to $3,500. So, man, we got a quiver of arrows ready to come in here and just knock everything out. And of course, the United States, we have 35 trillion in debt. I mean, what do we have? America's done. I mean, economically, they're printing the dollar. And then, of course, last night, the People's Bank of China, they're now printing the yuan now nonstop, lowering requirements for the banks. I mean, it's gold at 2,600. The train has left the station here. The only thing we're waiting for now is like the biblical shout and the trumpet. And, I talked about this the other day. Trump warned that there would be a 1929 stock crash. In his warning, he said we could see a 1929 stock crash. I went back and looked at the numbers at 1987 and 1929. The crash in 1987 was actually worse than 1929. So to put it in perspective, a 1929 crash today would mean that the Dow Jones would go down 4,000 to 5,000 points in one day. Now, that's bad. I mean, that's a big wipeout. But if we were to mimic what happened in 1987, the Dow Jones could crash between 9,000 and 10,000 points to match what happened in 1987 here. And there's never been a time where we've got record gold going up, record debt, a stock market that's literally sitting at record highs and really shouldn't even be there. And you've got all these investigations going on Supermicro and Nvidia here. We just are literally walking through a minefield of things to go wrong here. So again, if we get the underwater cable situation going on, we're gonna see some dramatic crash where it might be a good time to pull the plug or hit the circuit breakers here. It's coming. There's no way to get behind this. And the amount of data that you posted on here regarding the undersea cables with Russia, these search engines aren't filled up there like that to let that story just go underwater and go away. So I believe, and your research was great. It was instant, which was really amazing here.
Well, it's only because of you, John, because I didn't know about it, but
yeah, it's going to be.
So the Dow dropped 508 points on October 19th, 1987. I mean,
22%. So what I did was this: I took the 22% and took 22% of what I think we're at. I'm not sure where we're at right now. Of the modern price, I took this. The Dow Jones is at let's see here,
around 42,000. So
yeah, there you go. So 42,000 times 22%, and it came out of that. Well, and I actually have a prediction for the Dow. I believe that the Dow Jones is going to 15,000, and that gold is going to 15,000. We're going to have a 1-to-1 Dow ratio where you'll be able to reset, and the Dow ratio Dow to gold should be 1-to-1. Gold at 15,000 is legit. Dow at 15,000, that's legit too. That's a great place to have, a reset right there. It could go to 10,000. 10,000 gold, 10,000. I think go anywhere in that area between 10 and 15,000. Now, recently Trump said recently that he's working on a plan for America to be able to raise a family on a single income and buy houses on a single income. Well, you can't do that unless things reset hard. How are you going to get a single income guy unless housing has to come down? Well, housing is going to have a crash. I believe housing is going to 1996 to 2001 prices and residence very, very quickly here. It's already on its way in some areas. Commercial real estate, we've already got 85, 90, 95% losses listed in Kansas, San Francisco, as well as Austin, Texas here. There you go. Look at that.
I've been looking, John, because I noticed that the 16 level in the last 2 years has been really good support, and it looks like we're breaking it right now. 1588 doesn't seem like a lot.
Yes,
look
at that. Look at that.
Back in 1932, it bottomed at 2. 1980, it bottomed at around 1. So yeah, it could very well go down to 1.
Well.
Or it could even go negative, John, where you need less than an ounce to get a whole Dow.
I believe it. Now those dates you just mentioned on that chart there. What? Now the first one was at 1932.
Yeah, just after
right before they confiscated gold.
Yeah.
And then 1980, what happened? $8.50 gold, $50 silver. When? During the Iranian crisis. And after the Bretton Woods situation, coming off the gold standard with Nixon here. So we have one is conflict before World War II, they grabbed the gold. And the other one is coming off the Bretton Woods system here with Nixon here. And now here we are. I mean, I can tell you, you're right. This is a good, nice chart there. Boy, you nailed it. It looks like it wanted to break back there in 2020, which is where gold, had made its first move and it came back up here. And now you're right. It looks like it wants to break down, which it's going to break down. If we get, I don't know how to read this chart in terms of but what would a 22% loss look like on a chart like this for the Dow? I mean, it would take it down to probably these numbers here that you have from 1980 and 1932.
Yeah, I mean, let's say the Dow drops 10,000, that's down to like 32,000, and gold's at 3,200, we'd be down to 10 to 1, but I think we're going down to 1 to 1. And I think
Yes.
Pierre Lassonde, who's like I respect, he's always called for 1 to 1 Dow gold ratio.
I agree with them. I agree. Mr. Lasson. He's been around for a long time. I like him too.
Yeah.
Mr. Franco Nevada.
Yeah,
I think he's the founder of Franco Nevada.
that's
Yeah.
right. It's the biggest royal gold royalty company.
Yeah, it's Franco Nevada is a big holding for my entire group. It's a very, very solid marquee stock there. So, Franco Nevada, great company and great story there too. I believe that Pierre used to work for Newmont and then took their portfolio and then created a royalty company from there. And the rest is legend. Boy, I'd sure like to be in his shoes.
John, just one question before we wrap up, and this is off topic. Where do you see Bitcoin? Because I remember you've got like a 4,200 target or something.
I'm still in my position on Bitcoin. When you hear Trump say we're going to pay off the $30 trillion debt by giving them, who is them, giving them a $35 trillion Bitcoin. Trump has been saying this in his rallies and interviews. He keeps on saying, we're just going to take that debt and give them a $35 trillion Bitcoin and write the debt off. I said, did he just say that? I fell out of my chair. I go, he's so funny. He's got a great sense. I really believe that the Bitcoin has already been taken over by the U.S. government. I believe that they're running a sting operation. I think what's happening in Bitcoin is to keep people out of gold that really, we're thinking about buying gold here. They're holding Bitcoin up. I think when we see silver and gold finally break out force majeure, then we're going to see reality over in Bitcoin here. Also, there's another piece to go with that. I've always said that if you look at the trail here, the money goes back to Jeffrey Epstein, Bitcoin, MIT, Harvard. Megyn Kelly came out recently and said that Jeffrey Epstein is going to be returning in the next 12 months. I said, oh, here we go here. Let's launch the circus here. Gold and silver love this kind of stuff, so I'm still holding 4,200 on Bitcoin, and it's going to be a structural change. It's not going to be a trade. It's going to be pretty much some sort of major structural event that brings it down in exposure here. And we're getting near that because I've been telling people when Bitcoin dies, silver's going to fly. Well, silver looks like it's ready to fly. And we've got a lot of issues that are coming out. Hey, what happens to crypto if they shut down all the cables? What happens? We didn't talk about crypto being affected. If crypto gets affected, it'll be what happens. Hey, my Bitcoin's out. Can I come call customer service and get gold for it? It's like, no, it's backed by nothing. Thin air here. There's a lot of challenges out there that are very, very complex, though.
We've heard Klaus Schwab and other people talk about cyber pandemics, but that's a great great distraction as well away from the undersea cables, I would say.
Yeah, I think that my call on Bitcoin is completely in the outfield. Most people look at me and say, "What did you say?" But I spent a couple years researching this, and it was David Morgan who I sat down and I said, "Look, it's clear as day. There's a lot of people that are talking about Bitcoin and promoting Bitcoin, but for some reason they have like selective memory in terms of the origins of the original interview. The first billionaire in Bitcoin, the interview is still on Cointelegraph. It's Jeffrey Epstein, and if you read his interview, he gives the same exact script that guys like Michael Saylor and all these guys are using the same script. It's like it's still up live on Cointelegraph. I think it's there on purpose.
Yeah.
Nobody researches. Nobody, as long as there's profit, nobody researches. Nobody cares. For me personally, Bitcoin was thin. I bought Bitcoin like $125. I bought Litecoin like at 65 cents. So I was in really, really early. But I didn't start my research on that until I saw Bitcoin make that big move from 19,000 down to like 2 or 3,000. It was the activity was so unusual. I just started digging in on that. And that's when I started really digging in, and then met with Kurt Wuckert, who was a Bitcoin historian. And the things he told me, I said, I don't want to hear anymore. I'm just like, I've had enough. Let's just wrap this thing up here and move back. Let's focus on gold and silver here. So there's a major event coming in Bitcoin. It's gonna be fun to watch. It's gonna be fun to watch. I think people are gonna learn really soon that silver is money and gold is money, and crypto and Bitcoin is thin air backed by nothing. I mean, the same people that complain about the derivatives on the Comex are the same people buying crypto and Bitcoin, which are not backed by anything. So it's really, yeah. I'm old school. The JP Morgan,
Just another question that I thought of, and I forgot to ask you. If we have this undersea cable event and the market shut, let's say in the last 10 days of October, because the BRICS are meeting 22nd, 24th of October, would that also be an excuse to cancel the elections in the US?
I never thought about that. That's a good point. I would think so. I mean, the last time the US dollar was ever challenged like this was never. I mean, the US dollar, America, has never been challenged. We saw what happened to Saddam Hussein when he came off the dollar to go to the euro. We saw what happened to Muammar Gaddafi when he wanted to do his African dinar. And of course, they stole his gold also. So this is the first time we've got a structural global, group, the BRICS, going after the US dollar. I don't think there's so much going after the dollar as much as presenting a new alternative. I'm not the believer that thinks the dollar is going to completely go away. I think the dollar is going to be reset and repriced. There's too much credibility and if it does go down, that would actually fulfill Trump's promise that you could buy a house on a single income in the future. So there's a lot of stuff buried in code back there. So Trump is a weak dollar guy. He wants the dollar down lower. So we're probably not going to see him fighting, maybe some rhetoric towards Biden. Oh, you're screwing the dollar here. But you see the People's Bank of China issuing the press release here. It's just a matter of time before America is going to have to do it. But I think you're right, though, regarding an issue like that if we have a cable cutoff and a BRICS launch simultaneously within a 1 month period here, then the idea of elections being shut down, I think, would make absolute sense. With chaos and event. I mean, it's almost like we live in a circus environment now.
I agree.
It feels like a circus.
Another reason to have physical gold and silver, because gold and silver, they're always going to be the same, and they can't become stupid, or they don't default.
Yes.
The whole financial system right now seems to be based on a bunch of clowns, I would say, in the circus.
It's embarrassing. I mean, I can't even. I used to read headlines on Zero Hedge to my group every night when I do my night show, and I was like, I can't do this Zero Hedge thing anymore. I'm reading the headlines. This is like a circus. I lose it. I'm like, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to blow my fuses here, And it's like, I can't believe this is happening here. I turned 63 this year, and I think it's 2024. It's like, men are dressing like women, and the stock market's at places it shouldn't be here. And the headlines are just, they make no sense. It's completely insane here. So, I'm very selective on my tequila these days just to deal with these matters,
Right. And so, John, that was great talking to you, and we should do it more often. But
would love to. I love coming on your show. I love the fact that you're across the pond. You're from Brazil. You love golf. Yes, and you have. I think of all the guys I've listened to, I've told my people my favorite guy on YouTube is Mario. I said he's got a great global perspective, but you dig into a lot of stories that people in the West really don't get into, and I picked up on that. And so your last month of shows have been just stellar. You've had some fabulous guests on here. So
Thank you.
I'm honored to be on the channel here. I'm so
You
honored
are.
to be on here. So I'm excited here. But
Can you tell
yeah, I
the
would love to
viewers
be.
where they can find you?
I'm on Telegram, which is uncensored, which means it's uncensored. You know, it's rated R, rated X, gold, silver, rated X, silver. I touch on stories and on conspiracy stuff that nobody would touch, and we're very effective. And we have a private paid members stock club. We have over 500 members here. We're heading towards 1,000 here pretty soon. We're expanding here, but we're on Telegram. Go to @silverismoney. You'll see my public feed. My daily feed is a private feed, but I do have a public feed on there, and it's been really powerful. It's a very close knit community, and everybody's on the same page. It's very well. The entire feed is manicured and moderated perfectly to stay on point with the narrative. I started it February 22nd, 2022. The Silver Gold Stocks Club, which is connected to that. That is a stock club that came out of Silver is Money. I started it up as a little, I do my strategy, go with me, and it exploded. I was shocked at how many people came on board. But I'm on Telegram. But now I brought in a social media marketing guy, so now I'm at Real John F. Perez on TikTok at Real, which is 6,000 new members in the last 2 months here. My Twitter is at Real John F. Perez, and Instagram at Real John F. Perez, and my social media has literally exploded by about 3,000% in the last 2 months. So I'm working. I'm like, get the content out there, but it's fun though.
Yeah, I've noticed my YouTube viewership has gone up, and I'm getting the rate of new subscribers is increasing, which is good. Maybe people are waking up to the fact that gold and silver are money, and that we've been living in an illusion. So, John, thanks again, and I wish you a great rest of the week, and let's keep an eye on those undersea cables.
Yeah, it's good. Wait, hashtag Red October. What if Red October turns out to be a submarine blowing up cables and turning the entire stock market red? That would fulfill the Red October movie script, huh?
Yeah, great.
Keep an eye on that one.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.